Our next guest is known as the Patriot Barbie. Lindsey is her name. She's written the book Targeted, One Mom's Fight for Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Happiness. Lindsey, welcome to What's on Your Mind.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
So just give me your overall thoughts of the second wave, another year of these government-mandated restrictions. Freedom seems to be in short supply around the USA. You've lived this. What do you think as the second wave comes? What do we need to do better?
Oh, well, we need to not comply, that's for sure. I was alarmed at the compliance we saw the first year, so that was 18 months ago. You've had time to research and pray about it and learn the truth for yourself. We now know that we have been deceived, that we've been misinformed, probably on purpose. And so 18 months later, if they're doing it again, you have to ask yourself why. And not only are they doing it again, they're doing it while they're claiming that masks have worked and vaccines work. So if either of those things work, why in the world are we locking businesses down for the second time? There is no legality and no authority to do this to business owners and make them enforce masks in the first place, and yet now they're going to go do it again. If anyone thinks that by complying that they are not furthering the agenda, they're very, very confused about what's going on here. We need to stand up and just defy these tyrannical mandates.
So far where we live, North and South Dakota and Minnesota, Minnesota's no picnic and a very woke governor. But so far this go around, we have recommendations. Mostly the state legislature prevented a mask mandate from happening again in North Dakota, even though we had the shortest mask mandate, thankfully, in the last go-around. South Dakota, what a freedom governor there with Kristi Noem, doesn't have in it. But you know, the wave is coming. There's no doubt about that. We're seeing it in schools where it is mandated. Parents are calling us saying they are treated to visits from the school resource officer and trips for their child to the principal's office until they comply and wear the mask. What research do you rely on? What advice do you give anybody that is subject to a mask mandate? I've often said if a business decides to do it, the business can suffer the consequences or reap the benefit based on what their customers say. But they own the business, so it's hard for me to say, hey, you shouldn't do that. I can decide whether to go there or not. I think government mask mandates, school board mask mandates, county, state health officers, that's where our battle is. Would you agree with that, Lindsey?
I would. Well, they're taking the battle, like you said, they're taking the battle and they're politicizing it on the business level, right? So if you've got a business that does or does not enforce, right there, the public has already decided what kind of business you are or are not. They've drawn the lines between Democrats and Republicans that if you don't enforce masks, well, obviously you're, a racist Trump supporter and, you're killing people. And if you do enforce them, oh, you're a mask Nazi and, you're infringing on my rights. They've made it so political with their misinformation that it's gone farther than, well, I'm not going to enforce it. It's black and white, and it's dividing the country. And the citizens are dividing the country, but the government has divided the country by continuing with the propaganda of, trying to work the numbers in a way on mainstream media that say we should all be terrified of dying of this, when the numbers really don't reflect that. And the government's not taking any risk by doing this. They're putting all of the risk on the business owners by saying, we have created this mandate. By the way, it's not a law. We've created it, and you're going to enforce it. But by the way, we are not going to pay you. We're not going to give you any tax cuts. There's no benefit to it. And you're going to have to deal with the hostile, violent situations that arise from it. So you go ahead and take that risk for us. Thanks. Have a great day.
Give me some of the worst examples you've seen around the country and remind me where you fought this battle yourself.
So I fought my battle in Oregon. I opened up last year, 6 weeks into the lockdown, I opened my salon. My governor terrorized me. She sent every single state agency she could, not because I was breaking the law, but because she wanted to shut me down because I was, showcasing that there was no authority for me to not be open. I had every right to be open, and I did prove that. She opened salons 2 weeks after that. But, who never came after me was law enforcement. Well, if these mandates are laws, you'd have law enforcement getting involved. And they're not. They're issuing letters to the public saying, these mandates are tyrannical. This is a dictatorship, and we are not enforcing them. That should tell the American citizens something, that they have a right to stand up for what they believe in.
And as far as the masks themselves and the effectiveness, you can only go to the CDC and see it's one of many recommendations. There's new studies now that have been, with the benefit of time, proving that the handout freebie masks that are the majority used are somewhere less than 10% effective in stopping the viral load of COVID. There's enough evidence here that it's sort of more of an optics measure. Tony Fauci was right the first time when he said this pandemic, this virus, masks are not going to be that effective, but they become the symbol of COVID. What advice would you give to anybody who is a health freedom warrior on this front to use specifically on the mask not even helping the situation?
What advice do I give them to stand up to it?
Yeah, what evidence do you use? What's the argument? What is, again, specifically on masks? I mean, what
right.
Arm the listeners and business owners with the data that you use on this, Lindsey.
Okay, so the data for me, prior to opening my salon, the data I have now is this. I opened my salon 6 weeks into lockdown, so May of 2020, 18 months ago. I never enforced masks, never. None of the stylists wore them. None of the clients wore them. And we were open on a regular operational basis for the last 18 months, and not a single case of COVID was even contracted at the salon, not even a possibility. No one got sick, client or stylist. So for 18 months, during the prime time when the government was saying, people are dying if you don't mask up, wear 2 masks. We were wearing 0 masks in close contact with clients, and not a single person got COVID. No one in my family has gotten COVID. No one in my inner circle that I've had contact with has COVID. To me, that's science. I shattered the illusion. I disobeyed, and this is why they've got to regain control of everyone again. Because if we all open up, and nobody gets us sick and starts dying because we're all developing herd immunity, which is our God-given immunity, that they are going to be exposed, and they've been exposed in my world. That's my science. I went against everything you said, and I didn't die of COVID, and nobody got COVID around me. So what does that tell you?
By the way, interestingly enough, Deborah Birx was here, and I asked her, give me your best example why masks are that vitally important. What do you give me the science, give me the data. And do you know that she said, well, a salon, we have an example where somebody had COVID, but they were masked up and nobody else got COVID. Well, you just gave us the same example, but nobody had masks on. So, again, they love to give us these anecdotal examples where they don't work, and you've got an example where they do work. Here's an example that they didn't. I think, again, it's a health freedom issue. It's America. If you choose to follow one of several recommendations from CDC, do it. If you own the business, explain it to your customers. But the idea that your stylist, Lindsey, or some 18-year-old waiter or waitress or hostess or host at a restaurant should be the ones that enforce this is just flat out ridiculous, isn't it?
It is. It's ridiculous. This is why the unemployment rate is so high. A, you've got the government handing out free money to sit on your butt. Who isn't going to take that, right? Not me, no thank you, but most lazy Americans are. Secondly, you've got now vaccine and mask mandates where, okay, well, I could take a job, but they're going to make me wear a mask or make me get vaccinated. No thank you. Thirdly, if I do take the job and I agree to wearing a mask, I now have to enforce masks on other people, whether I believe in it or not. I get to handle the violent, volatile clients that don't want to wear a mask for minimum wage. No, thank you. No wonder no one wants to work. They need to let businesses operate freely the way that they agreed that they were going to let private businesses operate years ago. And if they want this country to ever go back to normal, they've got to get their nose out of our business, literally, and let us run things the way we want, not politicize it, not crucify those who don't enforce it. Let 16-year-olds go to work and seat people at a table without also having to be the mask police when it's not their job and they're not being paid, they're not being compensated for it, and they're definitely not being trained to do it.
Now we know why they call you the Patriot Barbie. She's the author of Targeted, One Mom's Fight for Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Happiness. If you need You know, a little warrior spirit in this time of a lack of health freedom. Read the book. You'll love it. One of the first business owners to defy lockdowns out in Oregon last year. Lindsey Graham, thank you.
Thank you very much.